I was talking to Peter. Funny thing is I remember the message board. I remember Peter busting my balls early years. And it's like so funny to look back. He's one of the guys like that I love. It's so funny. You never know who you're gonna become friends with. So we've bonded with the RV thing over the years. And so I remember our early conversations. I was not back in the sport and I was talking to him and I was like, I guess I didn't realize how many people who I cared about also were not in the sport. Yeah. And he said something like, oh, arm wrestling changed. It's not the same anymore. And it's like, did it change?
Mm-hmm. The culture did.
It did.
Yeah, it did. It did. And you know, it's funny. It's like, I'm kind of, I think maybe this is, if there's anything unique about me, it's this, is that I like things that don't fit stereotypes. I'm always intrigued by things that, you know, aren't what I expect them to be. And the way I found arm wrestling, I remember going and showing up at an event and thinking like, oh, this is like, what am I doing here? This is going to be just a bunch of idiots yelling at each other. You know what I mean? And seeing like the level of like class and decorum of the guys, it actually was, to me, it was like a turn on because, you know, I had, you probably don't know this about me. I played baseball all the way up through high school. And then I ended up really, really falling in love with playing basketball. I played street ball pretty much everywhere in the tri-state area. And I used to love trying to find the best competition that I could play basketball against, you know, whether it was at like West 4th in Manhattan or the Rucker in Harlem, you know, Clover by me where I lived in Connecticut. And it was just all of this blah, 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 blah. Everybody ran their mouth. So then I'm like, yeah, why am I going out to Massachusetts to an arm wrestling tournament? It's going to be the same shit, you know? And then I get there and I was so pleasantly surprised about how nice everybody was and like how forthcoming they were with like giving information, you know, how so many people at my first tournament that I talked to, so many people were like, hey, you know, there's a training group over here and you're always welcome to come train. And I'll never forget that treatment because to me, it was like, well, that's what I want to be to other people, you know, and I really love that about the sport. And then it kind of turned into what I thought it was going to be in the beginning. And then I lost interest, you know, by
what
2012.
Year around
Yeah, I went to the Alabama States in 2012 and I had a super match with Jerry Cole, which I won. I pulled the 198s and it was a loaded 198 class. Had at that time the top 3 guys in the Southeast at 198, and I won that. And I went all the way through the winners bracket in the 242 class. Jerry Cole had won the 220s, and in the 242 class, I went all the way into through the winners bracket and lost twice in the finals to I think Nate Adams. Yeah, Nate Adams. And I should have been thrilled with how the day went. But I remember, you know, reffing that day and, you know, I was always asked to help whenever brackets went wrong. And I remember driving home and thinking to myself, I should have stayed home. And when arm wrestling got like that to me, where it started to feel like a chore, you know, I knew it was time for something else because, you know, I have this, with everything in my life, I have this live to learn approach. Like, you know, I always love learning about new things. And I kind of got to a point with arm wrestling where it just ran its course. So.
I'm sorry to dispute. My kid just woke up. I got to grab him again. Hey, bud.
He looks like the baby from Ghostbusters 2.
Thank you for being so patient with
for sure, man.
With me. If you were just an arm wrestler that day, was it because people were asking you for help?
I definitely got way too involved. Like I got to a point where it's like, you know, so I was a USAF board member. I'd done announcing and broadcast work and promotions. I refereed a lot of events and, you know, I competed and, you know, coached and all of this other stuff. And I really enjoyed it, you know, but then it just got to be a little bit too much where it seemed like every time I was going to an event, somebody was trying to rope me into doing something else. Like, hey, can you ref, announce, and compete? And it's like, why are you busting my balls? Like, I don't want to do all that. You know what I mean? I used to say, I just want to go to an event and compete. And the other thing I think was that, with the exception of a couple of people in this area, I didn't have the camaraderie that I had with the guys in Connecticut, like, you know, Pete and Timmy and, you know, Frank Hurst. And, you know, we all used to.
Frank! I loved Frank.
We would all get together and just ride to a tournament, you know, and sometimes like Ralph Petrozzulli, all these guys, sometimes we'd have to take like Caravan. We'd be in Timmy's Suburban, and then we'd have to like have another car sometimes, because we just we were so infected, you know, with this love and excitement for the sport that it was great. But then I got down here and it was like I had to recruit people, or I'd have people say, I'd have 6 people going to an event, and I'd be like, we're all going to this event. And then I'd drive 6 hours to an event alone because everybody would back out in the last minute. It just got to be a point where it was like more of a hassle than it was something I enjoyed. And I knew it was time to move on. The writing was on the wall before that, but I really knew it was time to move on in 2012.
Come on, get it up there.
There it is!
Yes! Finally, you squeezed hard enough.
Boom. And so grip strength captured your love?
In a way, yeah. I mean, I think it was all different kinds of lifting that really did, because, you know, there was a few things that. Go ahead.
So you were just like, I'm still gonna train. Like arm wrestlers train because they want to become better arm wrestlers. But then if you stop arm wrestling, do you stop working out? You kept like lifting and working out, and you're like, yeah, I still love that aspect of training. Right. But you didn't necessarily have a focus that you were training for.
Training in many ways was my therapy, and it still is. And, you know, you talked earlier about patience. The thing that taught me patience was training. It was like, I learned in very real time, you know, that being patient and micro-loading my way to a strength goal, you know, was the way to go. That slow and steady wins the race. And it's like,
what does that mean, micro-loading?
So micro-loading is essentially like, you know, especially, you know, if you're my age and drug-free, you know what I mean? You're not making huge gains. You're not making gains and leaps and bounds. You have to be very smart about how you're training, you know, and you have to add a little bit here and a little bit there. So, you know, I went out and got fractional plates and started, like, you know, working my way up to all these different feats of strength that I just thought it would be cool to do. And then, you know, once I started doing them, it's like, you'll never run out of things when it comes to feats of strength. You'll never run out of things that you can do. Even with like steel bending and stuff like that, it's great. You know, there's always a harder bar, you know, to bend, or it's a little bit longer, or it's a little bit thicker. You know, like the difference between a bar that's like 5/16 and 3/8 is like unbelievable, you know, but then you can go in these little gradients. You can go from like 5/16 cold rolled steel to 3/8 hot rolled steel, you know, and then you can gradually work your way up. And it's like, it's
okay.
It's
so
like,
what is your world record at?
In terms of what you said, in terms of grip?
I watched the video. Devon Larratt comes up to you. He's like, "Hey, world record holder."
So the lever top.
Pick it up. Pick it up.
Okay, so the lever top is something that arm wrestlers are generally really good at, because it takes a lot of wrist and bicep strength. And I got introduced to it by a guy locally named Bob Sundin. But the guy who made it, the guy who developed it years ago, was a guy named David Horn, who is an arm wrestler from England. And he's a legend in the strength world, David Horn. He developed it. And I always wondered, you know, well, would I be able to hit a record on it? Because I was pretty close to it after training not very long. And it was right up my alley because it took a lot of pronation and wrist strength and bicep strength. And, you know, I got to a point where I trained it. And I know a lot of people don't like to train it because it's the most painful lift there is. You know, there have been events, you know, in Europe where they've actually dropped it off the event list because people were just like, I don't want to do it. It hurts, and Joe Rogers, actually Bucky Russell's son, who arm wrestles down here, he went to an event and did lever top. And he said his arm hurt for like 2 months. So it's an unbelievably painful thing to train. So people don't train it. But my thing was, I get sort of laser focused on something I want to do, and I do it. I just work at it. And I take the time. And
this whole thing, it's like, I wish I could duplicate myself because I don't always get excited about stuff like I do arm wrestling. Like, you watch certain things and you're like, oh, that's cool. But like this whole grip thing, it really is like piquing my interest. And I feel like there's a lot of like, if you compare arm wrestling and the community, it's so, I was talking to Eric Rusin a little bit about it, but is there equally a community?
It's not
like
as
that?
Big. It's not.
It's a smaller.
Yeah. Like in terms of the strength related communities, grip is smaller than arm wrestling. So at events, you're not going to see like as many people there as you would in arm wrestling events, but there's a very similar brand of camaraderie.
Is there any super matches, grip super matches?
No, it's funny.
Grip TV, people traveling around like Gary.
No, there isn't. But we were talking about, there's a guy named Jed Johnson who you probably know who Luke Raymond is. Jed basically got Luke involved in strength related stuff. Jed is a former strongman, performing strongman. He's got one of the best grips in the world. He was talking about having a head-to-head match with someone else at one point, and he wanted me to announce it, and we thought about like how cool that would be to take two guys who are like at the top, and rather than having an event where they all have to compete in a class, and then you have to do the lifts and see who wins this lift and that lift, and you have to wait your turn because all these other people have to take their 3-4 attempts. Just have him and this other person go at it. Just go at it and see, who can lift the most in each discipline. So I thought it would be a cool idea. And he said, I want to live stream it and I'd like you to announce it, but it never happened. The other person was a guy named Chad Woodall, who very good strongman, unbelievably strong grip. So yeah.
I feel like there's a world where arm wrestling tournaments and grip strength tournaments should coexist in the same venue. I totally feel like it's like there's some sort of biathlon thing in there.
Right.
For me, we're like, can win one prize in the arm wrestling. You can win one prize in the grip, but if you win both, then you're like the man. I don't know.
Right. Well,
there's more here.
Yeah. We were going to do that at the CT Power Fit Expo. The guy who I announced the one at Mohegan Sun. It was a fitness convention at Mohegan Sun, and I announced it. And the guy, Pete, actually sent him a video of me doing a medley that was basically all strongman and grip stuff. And he was like, "This is awesome. Like, we need to have this." Yeah. You know what I mean? But nothing ever materialized.
Is there a nationals?
Yeah, well,
like for grip, the world championships.
Well, there's the real world championship is something called King Kong, and it's
so
a
Eric just announced that.
Yeah. Eric runs a leg of King Kong in Ontario, in Ottawa. But the same guy has won it a couple of years in a row, and he's arm wrestled a little bit. His name is Tanner Merkel. And he lives out in Texas, and he's a freak of nature, absolute freak. He was a really high level rock climber at one point. He's got hands. When I met him, I told him he was like walking in through the door with the light behind him. He looked like E.T., because his fingers were like this long, but he is ungodly strong too. Tanner is, and he's won it a couple of years in a row, but some of the stuff that you see from some of these grip athletes are absolutely phenomenal.
When I was talking to you on the phone and you mentioned like hand size, and I was like, oh, of course. Like, what like you were mentioned, if we could call back, you mentioned Benji, 140 pounds, small frame, small hand, but yet you could train to become a good arm wrestler.
Right.
To be a grip champion, do you need the genetics? Do you need the big hand? Can a small hand guy compete in this world?
They can, but not like, so you have to realize one of the disciplines is thick bar. So if you have a small hand and there's somebody that can wrap their hand around a 2.5-inch handle, like a Rolling Thunder or a Crusher or something like that, they don't have to have as strong a hand as you to pull the weight up. You know, they're just going to get a better wrap on the bar, or an axle bar, a 2-inch axle deadlift. You have to go double overhand, so you can't mix your grip. You know, if you have bigger hands, you're going to pull more on an axle. You know, I mean, there are some guys that are grip athletes that pull the same amount on an axle that they do on a standard bar. So
I was messaging Eric, and I think I talked to Eric a little bit. Again, he's in that world also, and he said something that really stands out. He said, like, you know, I can't remember if it was national champion or like some of the big elite arm wrestlers can't do what, like, let's say he does in grip. And I was like,
no question. Eric's phenomenal.
Like, being an amazing arm wrestler does not mean you'd be an amazing grip strength athlete.
So,
and why is that?
we had a small grip event at the North Georgia Fit Expo, and I want to say 2013. And it was coupled with an arm wrestling tournament. And I was doing a seminar at the arm wrestling tournament, and they asked me to referee. And we were also putting on this grip event afterwards. So Ron Bath was able to go up to the Thomas Inch dumbbell and thumbless, and very few people have lifted the Thomas Inch dumbbell thumbless.
Is that where you got to do like this?
Yep. And lifted it.
You got to keep it from rolling?
Yep. And he lifted it with both hands, right? He couldn't lift it with his thumb wrapped. And the other thing he couldn't do was he couldn't do any real strong, like real high level plate pinching. Like, there are guys, for example, there are strong guys in the gym that if you put 2 35-pound plates together, smooth side out, you know, some of them really strong guys will be able to pick it up. And
35-pound?
2 35s. Yeah.
That's big. So that would be difficult, right?
Well, it's considered kind of a gateway feat. Like, if you can do that, you got strong hands. You know, wow. but then you know, the goal from there is to get to 45s, and then there's 9 of us that have pinched 2 55-pound plates. So
what?
Yeah,
9 of us.
I was sixth. I was sixth. I was the 6th person to do it. Yeah.
Insert.
There it is. Yes.
I need the lever thing, the world thing, and that thing. Okay, so I have a question. While you're doing all the script stuff, are you paying attention to the world of arm wrestling? Is there any draw, you mentioned watching that video was a little drawing you in. Did you have any of that since 2013? Just slowly trying to draw you in. You mentioned you got involved.
I went to
with
a few
Juji
events
at some point.
Yeah. Oh, well, with that was interesting. The way that happened was, like, I'm gonna sound like an idiot here, but I had no idea what a subreddit was.
Subreddit.
I'd never been on Reddit, you know.
And love subreddits.
And one of the guys that used to train with us from South Carolina, that used to come up and lift with us, he goes, he said, yeah, they were talking about you on Juji's subreddit. And I was like, okay, like, A, who the fuck is Juji? And B,
wait
what
a
is
minute.
a subreddit?
Before you ever met Juji, they were talking about you on the subreddit?
Yeah.
Was it Tom and Juji's subreddit?
I guess so, because somebody had said something about you should get with the Charlotte pickup artists, because that's our, like, you know, jokey kind. We don't take it seriously, but that's our name. You know, when we go to events, we got like pickup artist shirts on.
The grip group.
Right. Yeah, we do. We you know, we tear decks of cards and phone books and roll frying pans and bend steel and
phone
and
books. Where do you get phone books?
Oh, dude, grocery stores usually, but it's hard to find them now.
You can still find them?
They're hard to find.
Oh, you know? My God. That's a dying
It is. And, you know, and the thing was, people were like, oh yeah, you guys should get together with them. And then I think somewhere at an arm wrestling tournament, someone else mentioned me to them. And then one day I got an email from Juji. I don't know how he got my email. And he said, hey, would you be willing to do a series on arm wrestling training with me? And I was like, okay.
Okay. So, is your name being thrown out there because you're the guy who wrote the book on arm wrestling and then also is the grip strength guy and is awesome?
Well, like, I don't know about the awesome part, but I think the thing is that, you know, I guess in many ways, a jack of all trades. Like I've done just about every strength sport there is at this point. You know what I mean? And I love it. And I know most of the people in a lot of the communities, especially locally. So I think it's just, you know, not like I'm a famous person. I'm not, but I think amongst the people that do these different things, I'm kind of somewhat well known, you know? So my name got brought up a couple of times to them, and then they sent me an email.
And is it because do they live right by you? Are you local to them?
They lived, I don't want to give away where they live, but we'll say about 45 minutes from
So
where
you're kind of local, and you didn't know that they were like this big influencers on YouTube.
The person who pointed me to their subreddit said, hey, do you know who Jujimufu is? And I said, what? The fuck is a Jujimufu?
I thought the same thing, man.
He said, you know, the guy that kicks the flamingos. And I'm like, why the fuck would somebody want to kick a flamingo?
Yeah.
What is wrong with this person? Call the animal rights people.
I only saw that video like a month ago. Yeah.
Right.
He was doing
and then I'm
kicking.
Like, yeah. And it's funny because I brought it up to one of my clients and she goes, oh, that's the guy that kicks the flamingos. And I'm like, yeah, fuck. You know what I mean? So then yeah, I kind of figured out who he was. And
maybe this is in a video, but why I haven't watched, I've watched some of their videos, but funny enough, I haven't watched the arm wrestling ones, the early ones. So I have never seen the ones with you and him.
2018, October.
What made him suddenly get interested in arm wrestling?
He was out at, I want to say the LA Fit Expo, and he actually entered a novice tournament there.
And how did he do?
I think he did pretty well, actually. Yeah.
So a guy like that could walk in and win a novice?
Yeah. And one of the guys in California, I think it was Alex Del Toro, saw him and arm wrestled with him a little bit. And, you know, and that's because that's the only other arm wrestling video I saw him in. Yeah. And I remember I got all these people saying, oh, you haven't arm wrestled in a long time. You know, how do you think you're going to do with Jujimufu? And I said, would you give me a fucking...
How do you think I'm going to do with Jujimufu?
So because you didn't know them, you didn't go in with like, you know, starstruck. You know,
no, but I started watching his videos and I couldn't believe how impressive he was. Like all this stuff he could do, I was like, wow, this guy's a specimen, you know?
Can he still do all those flying things?
Absolutely.
That is amazing. I see how he got popular.
You know who else can? Tom.
Yeah.
Tom,
oh, yeah. I saw that too.
Tom's a hell of an athlete. You know, he just gets his balls busted a lot.
I watched the video where they talked about one of their first collaborations, and I was like, I cannot believe people can do this without trampolines. Like they're just on the ground. It's amazing. So anyways, you go to him and he says what to you? Like, I need to become the master. Are you
no
Karate Kid? What's the
Miyagi? Yeah.
Miyagi.
Basically,
Coach Miyagi.
It wasn't that as much as it was, hey, we want to do a series on training and technique for arm wrestling, and we heard you're kind of the guy. And I was like, okay. So I did like a couple of videos with them. I think it was 3. And then for the 4th one, they did a tournament, which I had nothing to do with. I was there to ref it, but dude, I was two days post shoulder surgery, and I was just in a horrible mood. You can see I got a sling on and stuff. It was awful. You know
when you gripped up with them, and some guys were like, "Oh, you've been out of the sport." I don't know, what was when you first felt them? What opinions?
Didn't feel them. No, I didn't feel them. No, but they've both gotten better. Like Juji's gotten to a point where if he actually trained, because he didn't do much in the way of training, like a lot of this stuff was just for videos. I mean, they called me before he did the bottom 8, and I didn't know they wanted to do a video. I thought Juji just wanted me to help him get ready for certain guys. And then he's like, no, we're doing a video. And I was like, have you been training at all? And it was like, well, yeah. And it's like, no, you haven't been training.
And so a guy like that who looks, from someone who doesn't know that they look awesome. They're jacked. And what is like the number 1 and 2 reasons why James Retarides can't feel them? Is it because they don't have tendons? They haven't learned how to connect the arm wrestling muscles?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So
my hand was stronger, my wrist was stronger, my forearm was stronger, my bicep was stronger, and I had a lot more side pressure.
All the above.
Right. But he was new, I mean, I'm sure you've arm wrestled against guys that were like bodybuilders and stuff. And, they're physically impressive for what they do, but then you get them on an arm wrestling table and their arm is all opened and they don't know what they're doing, and you coach them through, and I would put them in good positions. And, I'm not one of these guys that I'm not going to grab people and rip them across the table when I train them. So I didn't do that with him.
Can you say that list again? Was it in order of importance? You ended with side pressure.
Well, we'll put it this way. Yeah. Cause side pressure is important, but it's
say
not
the
that
list
important.
again. You
so
said my hand,
wrist, bicep. I don't know what else I said. In general,
is hand more important than wrist, which is more important than bicep, which is more important than side?
Arm wrestling is one from the top down. Arm wrestling is one from the top down, but it's like if great example, if I'm pulling somebody who's got similar hand strength to me, but they got a bigger hand, I might find my way into the straps with them, so I don't have to deal with the size of their hand. So it's like you can get away with except I pulled Cleve Dean one time, and it was like there was no way, even in the straps, there was no way of me getting set up with him where I would feel good. You know what I mean? So, but
you're never gonna get it.
Right. You're grabbing this, you know what I mean? It's this giant hand. But no, I mean, arm wrestling is one from the top down. I mean, all these guys that are focusing on all this stuff, if they would work on their pronation and they work on their cupping strength and a lot of their hand and wrist, wrist curling and stuff like that. And, a little bit of back pressure, you'd be surprised. You don't need as much side pressure. So much of it is just positioning and angles. So.
Now, these guys, are they just, now I notice people like this, they're just, they have to come up with a bunch of cool shit to do, like Devon. Those guys, they went fishing, or the food contest. Is arm wrestling like just another idea to get a cool video and then move on?
Yeah.
Or did they actually start to love the sport and want to be involved in it?
One of the things I think they genuinely enjoy the sport. I know they genuinely enjoy the guys around here, because I know that Jujimufu has showed up at arm wrestling practices. I know they've established a very good friendship with Devon, so there's that.
Because I mean, if that's true, and guys like this, and now with the Larry Wheels, I mean, that's amazing for arm wrestling, right?
It is.
If they become like fanatical arm wrestling guys, it can only be good for the sport. But are you in the sport? Are you out of the sport? Are you back? I'm back. Are you back with me, baby?
We'll just put it this way. They are.
No, I'm not back.
First of all.
And are we having an NAA 12?
No. Oh, so there was 11? I didn't know there was 11.
You didn't know the answer, so I was guessing.
Yeah. So
NAA 45 is next February 18th.
To answer your previous question, I think it's what are all the physical things that Tom and Juji can do that can invite in a new audience, and also already has some kind of competitive culture developed, and and I think it's that. It's like, what's going to get views, and if it gets views, we'll do it again, and if it doesn't, then we'll be going towards something else. I think
let me try to tie this together.
Yeah.
If you pick your 10 best grip guys who have never arm wrestled.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also pick 10 Larry Wheels and Jujimufu bodybuilding guys who would do better in the tournament right off the bat without knowing
arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Most likely the grip guys.
The grip guys have like an innate crossover.
Well, yeah, because they train their hands and wrists so much. They have all this forearm development, you know, and you know, it's like you see that guy Khaled, for example, that's training out in Dubai.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have
people
the
are
world's...
believing that he hasn't trained.
Right,
I mean, that's how good he is, right? It looks like, oh, of course he's arm wrestled before.
Well, he's like obviously green. He's green though. I mean, he's you know, he's definitely green, but he doesn't have the strongest grip in the world. Let's be clear about that. He's got an amazing thick bar, and his crush is very good, but he's not got the strongest grip in the world. But you can see that he can get on an arm wrestling table and perform, and so much of that is due to all of this strength that he has. You know, if he learns how to move on the table and shift his weight, you know, where to point his feet and how to get his shoulder behind his hand and all that other stuff, he can be phenomenal, especially he develops a little more tendon strength and coordination, you know.
When we were on the phone, you said, I got in on an arm wrestling table, but it felt like I've been training, I'm strong, but I felt like I wasn't connecting all the pieces together. Like, there is like an arm wrestling memory that you need to develop. And you were saying, like, even you who has that historical, you know, pedigree, you even kind of like forgot how to connect the muscles.
You know, some of it's age, and some of it is just a lot of time away from it. You know, it's like, I know, and this is the age part. Like, I know I have this idea of what my body can do. My body just can't do it anymore. And that, I'm just starting to feel that this past year. And that's a little bit disturbing for somebody like me. And the other thing I would say is that, I don't think it would take very long for me to feel connected. You know, I just noticed that the guys that I have pulled, you know, they've said that I have spots on the table where I feel like a wall, but they're just, I don't have much endurance in there because I don't train. I don't arm wrestle at all. I just have really strong individual parts, my wrist, my hand, my bicep, you know, my forearm in general, especially my brachioradialis and my wrist flexor. And, you know,
so
I have
I'm a little
strong
confused.
chest and shoulders.
Devon and Michael Todd were at an arm wrestling practice at one James Retarides' house.
Yes.
So you were having
staged.
You were having a practice.
Right. But it was all staged for Tom and Juji. Like, it was like,
you're not having arm wrestling practices.
No. Nope. I get contacted all the time by people that want to get together and train. And I either point them to Paul Walther, who lives in Waxhaw, or I'll send them to my buddy Porkchop, who lives in Concord, or Mike Gianelli, who lives in Lowell.
I remember Mike.
And, so those guys will host regular practices, and you know, I'll just let them know, like, and every now and again, if you want to get together, that's fine. But I'm, you know, I don't know. I don't love it. You know, I mean, there's a part of me that, you know, I see the IFA and I see drug testing and stuff, and I think, that turns me on. I'll be honest with you. That gets me a little bit interested. So
I'm interested in it too. I am interested in this because it's like, I want to know more. I'm not sure why there's not more cheaper drug testing to make it easily for small promoters to drug test. Like, why can't, like, this should be a thing. I should be able to go into Walgreens and do a out-service P test. Like,
well, there's
for $20.
100% raw powerlifting, which is just right here in North Carolina. They test. You know, I mean,
I want to know more about this because if I ever made some real money, I would love to be a pioneer in that. I don't know. I want to go back to the book second.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about this, and I'm fully willing to go to another session if you need to go.
No, I'm laughing. I'm looking at you with the baby there.
Yeah. He's doing. I might lose him. We might have to My sweet
heads
Bubs.
bobbling all over the place.
Yeah. So
you got a nice smile, though.
Yeah. So you're out of the sport of arm wrestling, but do you have a book? Like
every
do
time,
people call you and ask for advice? Like you must be pulled back because of that. Like
my Facebook and Instagram Messenger are full of questions from people who I don't know, who get involved in the sport, and I give them a little input. I don't give them too much because I tell them, like, look, because you'll have people that'll ask these really broad questions, and it's like, well, how do I train for arm wrestling? My God, seriously? Is that a question you just asked me? What do you want me to do? Write a book? Oh, wait, I already did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the book.
But
I
if
mean,
it's
why
like,
don't you
hey,
just
is there
say,
another
here's
exercise?
the book link.
Right.
Link.
I did that one time and somebody was like, oh, so you're going to push your book on me. And I'm like, fucking hell. You know what I mean? Like, no, I spend a good amount of time, I'd say, returning a few messages. I'd say on a weekly basis, I return a few messages to people. But if you look over time, especially over the last, say, 10 years, at my Facebook Messenger or my email or my Instagram inbox, you'll see that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of messages because they accumulate over time.
Okay, so when did you? I don't remember. What was like your biggest win? Like, I'm most proud of this arm wrestling.
I think I'm most proud. Well, I wouldn't say it's a moment. I mean, I'm most proud of winning in 2008 the Nationals, but I'm not thrilled with how it happened. Because it was me and Rob Vigeant, and it's got to come around. It's like this. That's the only thing I'm saying. I mean, I'm okay with the grip. It's just I don't want to. You know what I'm saying?
Fourth place member, Mark Clay. He's got the fuel to do it.
Stop.
It's over here. He rolled his hand.
Yep, that's where I got it.
His wrist is bent. Straighten it out. Please. Go! Please straighten that out. His wrist is bent.
That's a pin. That's a pin. And he peeled. Wait a minute. Whoa. We talked about that. When he comes like this, that's an intentional slip.
I'm asking him if he closed his fist. He closed his fist.
Are you kidding me? That's the only way you can get out. Let's go, Rob. If I said watch for it's going to happen quick. You're kidding me, right? Come on, James. This guy's serious?
Don't get another foul. Are you serious?
Second foul, Rob. Winner, James Rodriguez.
He went like this 100 miles an hour. He really did. Of course he did. It's the only way he could get out. I was over him like this. It's the only way he could get out.
I don't know why you're up here.
I wasn't recording. Can you tell us how we got second foul?
That was an unsportsmanlike conduct. That's what the second foul was. So he was back talking to the refs, and the refs tried to put him into a grip, and they started to set up again. Apparently, he continued to move forward, and I guess aggressive behavior, unsportsmanlike conduct.
I know you don't like the circumstances, but national champion nonetheless. Name and location.
James Retarides, Charlotte, North Carolina. I love Rob Vigeant Jr. I mean, I hate winning anything like that. I mean, I'd be happy to pull him in the straps. I mean, they called straps. I think he was upset that they called straps, because he had better position than me. He had better position than in the first match. The first match, he said I was dumping my wrist intentionally trying to slip, but, he had my hand and he wasn't pinning me. He wasn't even pushing me from center. So, I don't know. I'm really upset right now, Gary. I don't know if you want to talk about it later. And, Rob and I thought were pretty close friends before that, and we had a lot of words on the table, and the way Rob fouled out of the match was not exactly something that was thrilling to me. And then, we had a little issue the next day, and then we talked it out. And then I went home, and there was a message on the message board. And so, it left a bad taste in my mouth. But I'll put it this way. Rob and I are fine. Rob called me or sent me a text this week asking me if I'd be willing to get together and train. And I said, of course. He might be, well, I don't want to give away what he was down in this area. We'll put it that way.
But you don't want to give it away? Okay.
Well,
hey, hold on. I got to put him in his play area. Yeah. So the reason I asked that question is because it's like you have this arm wrestling achievements but then you also like wrote a book, and it's like now this is kind of living on, and it's like, when did you realize, hey, I'm a pretty good coach? Like I can teach people how to arm wrestle. Like I mean, if you wrote a book,
2003. And the reason I say that is not so much of what it was that I knew, but it was my style of motivating people. And I think that's what's carried over into my life, you know, later as a football coach and now as a therapist. It's like, you know, I'm a big believer in really helping to develop people's self-efficacy and not, you know, I think we all had enough coaches that would hammer the hell out of us and tell us it was building character and all this other stuff. My thing was like, you know, if people know that your criticism to them is designed to build them up, they're more likely to take it. So it's like anytime I coach somebody, they knew that I was in their corner. You know what I mean? But they also knew that if I gave them criticism, it wasn't there to tear them down or to boost my own ego. So in 2003, I started seeing a lot more people come to practice. And like, I mean, most people don't remember this or know this, but, you know, before I left for Charlotte, you know, every Thursday night, now this is on a weeknight, we would get guys that would come down to Connecticut from New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, you know, all over Connecticut. We'd get the guys come from New York City. Sometimes we'd get guys that would come out from Pennsylvania, New Jersey. So we would have unbelievable practices every Thursday, almost like Dave Morocco has now in Maryland. Like we would have that. And it built my confidence because it was like, you know, I think at some point, you know, you have this idea that it's almost like imposter syndrome. Like, do I know what I'm doing here? And then when people keep coming and they're like, you know, they're reassuring you that like, yeah, everything you're telling me is helping, you know, it just, it really boosts your confidence. And, you know, you start to think, well, yeah, maybe I'm pretty good at this.
So when was South Korea, the seminar?
That was 2012.
So almost 10 years later, you've now encapsulated everything you learned, and you formulate it into a PDF, and then you're like,
see, Travis was trying to get on the show. What do you know?
Oh, that was good.
Travis, just move aside. My God, Travis. You always have to be in the spotlight, Travis.
Yeah,
get off the camera for 1 minute, man.
Sorry about that. I was trying. I promised Travis I wouldn't bring on another guest and make them the beast of the day unless he disappeared again. So Derek Smith was his punishment for disappearing on me for a week. That's why I had to create my Gary's other arm wrestling show.
Right. Well,
so the confidence level, you're like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to put it into a book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that a hard thing to do? Like I've thought about writing a book for other things, but you know, actually doing it and thinking about it.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
There's like some things I would change. I mean, there's some things like if I was to do a text revision, there's some things I would update, I would probably improve. It was my first go at a book, but you know, one of the things that I did when I was in my early 20s was I worked as a journalist. I went to school for journalism and broadcast journalism. And in my early 20s, I worked as a reporter, and I became an editor with Journal Register, the New Haven Register in New Haven, Connecticut. And so I had some experience writing and editing, you know, before this. I just never did any kind of book work.
You have an eclectic background, sir.
Everything I'm interested in, I pour myself into, Gary. It's it's I don't know. I've been that way for a long time.
So I want to see if I can tie some things together. Is the reason, so back when you were promoting, we had the message board, and we had ARMTV, I mean, was Facebook really a way to connect? I don't really remember Facebook.
It became that. I think it became that, but that wasn't until
it transitioned.
Like 2000, probably 8 or 9, when you started seeing Facebook become something and YouTube become something even after that.
So I feel like when it came to the message board and arm wrestling and ARMTV, like we were able to connect, but still keep a community. It hadn't gotten out of control.
Right.
Like if you look at the internet now, social media, it's just out of control. I mean, it's like, I mean, anybody can,
it's a lot.
Our world back there was a little more concentrated and easier to manage, let's say. And I'm trying to get to, is part of the reason why arm wrestling sucks is one of the things of internet. Like if the internet sucks, like anyone could say anything, anyone could be, and the person who makes the most noise or just looks good or like popularity content, it's almost like you
let's think about what
some of the community connection with the craziness
Sure.
that is going on. And I was wondering if the what's happened today was some of the seeds of why you decided to leave, or was it completely individual?
Well,
and related
it
to
was
you
an
just
individual.
Because the way you just told me, it sounds like you were too in the sausage.
Yeah.
Of making the sausage, and you would have just liked to be just a normal guy going to
a normal meatball.
Yeah. So, but like social media wasn't crazy back then. So is it related or not related? You see now what's happened in the world, and it's like, probably I can only imagine it. Because we're tying it back to what drives you nuts.
So you're tying it back to what drives me nuts. All right.
Oh, so that's my tie. That's where we're going.
So let's break down, let's think about it this way. Spare maybe a few people what America used to be about in general, I think, and maybe this is just my ideals, but I think the ideals of America are also this, that if you get good at something, then you get rewarded for it, you get attention for it, you get notoriety for it. And now it's not about being good at something, it's being good at being famous. It's about being good at being famous. And it's like there's something histrionic and pathological about that. And it's just so far from what attracts me. I mean, I'm attracted to people that are, in general, they have substance and depth, and not people that are just about putting some persona forth that's going to get a lot of attention. That has always been something that's caused me an upset stomach, and it just doesn't attract me. And I think what happened was, like I talked about, like back in the 90s, and you had this camaraderie, and you remember some of it when you started on TV, right? And then it got to a point where it's like, now it's like, if you're a douchebag, people pay attention to you. And in some ways, I think people root for the might makes right, fuck your feelings, douchebag type of person, to the point where, I don't know, maybe we elected one of those. And I don't want to get too far.
Oh man, you just got Speaking of, do we know who's president yet?
No, we don't. But let's just put it this way. Like if everybody is a micro celebrity, and we start worshiping Kardashians and people who are all about unearned celebrity, like, don't be surprised if society further pathologizes, because, it's like, look, the American president has always been a reflection of the American people. So let's not be shocked if someone like Trump isn't elected in the future. Like, even before he ran, I said, watch. The reason why Kanye West is wearing a MAGA hat is because he wants to run for president someday. And you know what I mean? But my point is this, is that the culture went from what it was that I liked about it to the complete opposite. And it's like, I'm not saying that I don't like the people that pull now. Like, I was talking to Devon when I like Devon. Devon's done a lot of great things for the sport. I think Armbed is fantastic, but But it's also, I think, you know, some of it is this social media idea. One of the things that I noticed when I stopped arm wrestling was that.
Pause for a second.
Yep.
Community watching here. To wrap back, if you're still with us, this is probably multi-parts, but the first thing I said to James was I was going through his Facebook and he said, oh my God, I can't stand the internet. Yeah. I can't stand the teachings of bad technique. And these arm wrestlers who think they know shit are driving me crazy. And this is coming from a guy who wrote a book. So now we're coming full circle back to you. And you were saying like Jason Otto would send you stuff. So we come
I think the
full
worst
circle.
one. The worst one I got was this guy.
Fuck my life.
This guy had posted a video of him down like this, and he's doing King's move. King's move. Fucking Christ. That's the first time I ever called it that. King's move training.
No, that's an open top roll. Michael Todd corrected you. Michael Todd corrected you. That's an open top roll.
You know what it is?
I saw it on the video.
You know what it is?
He said
the moment your arm opens up from here, you know what it is? It's bullshit. That's what it is. You want to call it an open top roll or a King's move, whatever the fuck this is, it's
bullshit.
And I saw a guy sitting there going like this with a weight stack in a fucking gym, and all I did was I wrote on, I was like, are you seriously fucking doing this? Like,
but that's a good question. Maybe he was just joking.
No, he was not joking, because I actually had a conversation with the guy because
he was serious.
Oh yeah, he was serious. Well, it's a legitimate move. And you know what? It is in today's arm wrestling world, it is a legitimate move. And that's why I say, like, I can't care. I just fucking can't.
Okay, so now
and I can beat that move. I can beat that move. I know how to beat that move.
Now, but guys like this, guys like that. So are they seeking fame? Or are they just oversharing? They really think it's cool. Like
to borrow a term, and this is not going to be very therapeutic, but to borrow a term from Sonny from A Bronx Tale, they're jerk offs. That's what they are. That's it. I
fucking can't take it.
It's too much.
And so these guys, they're kind of proud, like, dude, like there's a danger of someone else watching this and being like, oh, I'm gonna do that too. And then it spreads like COVID. Right?
Oh yes. That's a fucking amazing analogy, Gare. It does. That's exactly what it spreads like.
Like you're trying, wear your mask. Do not post that shit.
Right.
Stop the spread. Man. Stop the spread.
Oh, and you know what the latest one is? The fucking plate curls. Oh God. You want to see a legitimate plate curl?
I think
you watch a guy named. What did Travis do? What did he do?
I've seen videos of Travis. He was saying at his seminar, he was saying the best way to mimic how he puts his thumb in a setup is that if you put a plate there and you can hold that plate, that's kind of like where he wants his thumb.
That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these guys that take a fucking plate, all right, a 45-pound plate, just to prove that they can do what fucking Christ Larry Wheels can do. And they use all this momentum and swing their arm up and their wrist is all back and they try to get it into position.
Wait, they use momentum?
Yes.
I thought you were talking about strict.
No. See, if you do it strict, that's great. But not like very few people can actually take a 45-pound plate from a dead hang and strictly curl it. That's what I'm saying. You watch a guy like Adam Glass do it. It's amazing because he's so strict and his wrist stays perfectly straight. But what these guys are doing is just.
Wait, I feel like Christian Binney just posted. You guys were just talking about another one.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Was it something else or was it plate curling?
It was plate curling. Yeah. Yeah, we were making fun of it. Yeah.
Are these okay? Now this is taking it to another level.
Right.
are there legitimate? I don't want to throw Ryan Blue Bowen under the bus. Do you know Brian?
No, yeah, we could do that. Go ahead.
Well, I heard I was on the phone with Todd Hutchings.
Right.
I think he referenced something that he disagreed with Ryan teaching a technique,
right.
and that he was frustrated, similarly to you being frustrated that somebody's promoting a less than ideal technique. I don't remember which it was, but
right. I don't know.
So Ryan is he's a public figure in arm wrestling where people know him, and Todd was saying he's promoting a technique I don't agree with, but to just tie it all together, I just went to a seminar where Travis Bagent was promoting a technique, and then John Brezink said, "Don't listen to Travis." Like,
well,
so
you remember, but at the start of this, I said there's alternate paths to the same goal. So you know, you can like if you watch Jerry Catterett arm wrestle, like you wouldn't be saying, "Hey, do this," right? But he's gotten so good at that move, and he's so strong with it. Like, who's going to argue against it? I mean, it's not for everybody, but it works for him. So it's like there are alternate paths to the same goal. So you're going to have people that'll disagree with training, you know. But well, you know, I mean, you can find guys, for example, that will do medium weights for a lot of reps, all right, and they'll develop a lot of strength. And then you'll have guys that say, I don't do anything more than 4 or 5 reps, and they will also develop a lot of strength. So it's like, you know, what does your body respond to, and what works for you?
Is there any one of these guys that you've seen doing bad technique or that is actually getting a following and people are listening to?
I'm not going to say this person's name, but there's a specific person that was doing like wrist curls and stuff with a 4-inch handle with his thumb wrapped. And that's dangerous. You can really screw your thumb up if you're training that thick with your thumb wrapped. If you want to do thumbless work, that's fine. But if you're wrapping your thumb, the ligaments in your thumb cannot stretch like that. It's not good, especially under a heavy load. And if you injure your thumb, and I know this firsthand, it takes longer to heal than any other part of your body. So you do not want to do that. Yeah.
Oh, I have a good question. So I was arm wrestling. I was in this move, and I was already feeling kind of a sprain right here.
Because you're out here rather than here.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But I was like, I should stop arm wrestling.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And I hit like a few times, and it was like I just kept fucking it up. And then 2 days later, I can't wipe my ass.
Right.
And I'm now, it's been 10 days. I'm just being able to start to finally be normal, but it still kind of hurts.
You can reach, right? So it's not a shoulder issue. It's
I'm like, okay, how long before I can arm wrestle again? I haven't arm wrestled now for 2 weeks. It's like, what kind of
Did you get it
rest?
checked out? Did you get it checked out?
I just let it rest.
Where's it hurt? Okay.
When I try to pronate.
Yeah.
It hurts
so have you tried doing like contrast baths? Because hands tend to respond well to those. You're going to do contrast baths. So ice water to hot water.
Oh,
yeah.
No,
and back.
Haven't.
Okay. Any naproxen at all? Like Aleve or anything like that?
I've done none of that.
Right.
It's
hard to rest that area. And it's one of the reasons why it takes so long for that to heal is because you're always using it.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult to actually rest it unless you brace it.
James Retarides, I feel like we could talk forever, but I gotta go check on the family. Dude.
Yeah, man, do it.
It's been awesome to catch up with you.
Likewise.
I'm gonna continue sharing these videos. I don't know, man. Maybe you can bring back some of the stuff the sport's missing. If you have a tournament, there might be a James, Christian, Peter reunion. Maybe, think about it. Think about it.
What I will say is this. So when I was doing when I was announcing the Vendetta events, the ones we did for CBS Sports and the ones we did for pay-per-view, getting together with Christian and Timmy and like Michael Todd would hang with us and stuff. And one time Nicole Sisko was there. It was really great to catch up, and actually one of my broadcast partners there, a guy named Barry Eget, who is going to be announcing the Mike Tyson Roy Jones fight, by the way. Big for Barry, rather. Yeah. Barry would hang out with us too, and we would have a blast. And yeah, I miss that. I miss that. I'll be honest with you. Those type of reunions I miss, but you know,
well, if I can make a trip down to Charlotte, I'd love to get a practice together and
you're welcome. Dude, you're welcome here. We got a couple extra bedrooms, so you just let me know when, and as long as it works for me, we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I gotta go. James Retarides, thanks for sharing. I mean, we skipped over stuff. I know that Peter's probably being like, hey, you didn't talk about this dude. There's like so much we could go for hours. But
been well over a decade since we've talked. So
all right, James, you look like you're doing awesome. I would love to hear more about the therapy stuff. That sounds really cool. We didn't even get into, I feel like we could have a whole subject on mind-eating therapy and ponder this for a second. Ponder this. I think it's an untapped market here. Most people go to therapy where it's confidential, it's private. And I was like, you know, and again, not because I want to be famous. It's just because I'm in this field where I'm dealing with these arm wrestlers and they're causing me a lot of drama. And I was like, maybe if I gave them an inside and let them watch my therapy session, they have a little more empathy with my plights of trying to be a YouTuber in the sport of arm wrestling and trolls. And maybe you can consider, I could even pay you for an hour session where we have a therapy session, but it's actually going to be going on ARMTV so they could hear experimental therapy. Think about it.
Why don't we just call it we'll refer to it as an interview, because we can't call it therapy, but we'll call it a therapeutic interview. What I don't want to do is A, be Dr. Phil, and B, lose my license to practice. So
it can be
violating confidentiality and privacy is a big deal. Yeah.
Therapeutic interview. All right. I love it.
We'll do a therapeutic interview. That can be done.
Can we do it?
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I gotta go.